Okay, we left off with provisional government being formed in the Red River Settlement by Métis leaders of the community, the taking of Fort Garry without any violence, and now we come to really where the Red River Rebellion goes off the rails. So the provisional government was mainly French-speaking Métis, and some of the English-speaking and Scottish settlers in the area were not too pleased, were against being told what to do by these French Métis leaders in the community. Thomas Scott, by all accounts, was one of the main ringleaders and was by far the most obnoxious. They were arrested before they could, carry out any of their threats of violence, which I think is fair. If you have people threatening violence, arresting them is a prudent move. The execution of Thomas Scott, though, would cause immense problems going forward. Thomas Scott, in jail, made all sorts of threats against Louis Riel's life. He's like, oh, when I get released, I'm going to kill him. And really was obnoxious and insulting his captors any chance he got. Now, I can imagine how emotion caused, the decisions to be made, but someone being annoying is not good justification for execution. Now, Louis Riel actually argued against the execution of Thomas Scott, but when he was, outvoted in the provisional government, he went along with it, and ultimately the responsibility was put on him. So he was brought outside the fort, was shot, and when news of this execution reached Ottawa, very much changed the perception of the Red River Rebellion. So the proposals sent by the provisional government were pretty reasonable, and the government agreed to most of them. One of the big challenges, though, that remained was land ownership. The Métis wanted guarantees that they could keep their farms, and this was, their main concern. More and more settlers came into the area. These were not Métis. These were, English-speaking people from the east. And so, looking here, Manitoba, as it was designed, very small, just kind of the bottom right corner of Manitoba as we know it today. When it joins Confederation 1870, this is before Prince Edward Island would join Confederation, actually, before British Columbia would join Confederation. And so, very early on, it becomes part of Canada. So they were going to set aside land for the Métis, and each family was given a scrip. And this is kind of like a coupon, and this was supposed to give them 240 acres. Unfortunately, the system did not work. Métis were not receiving the land. So they had these pieces of paper that were supposed to, guarantee them land, but settlers from the east showed up and, were not respectful of Métis identity. They wanted society to function the same way it had in Ontario. They wanted to be English-speaking Protestant. They were not, going to let French Catholic Métis people dictate to them how society was going to operate. And so while they waited for the promised land to be given to them, just the reality on the ground was changing rapidly. And so here we can see, here's some Métis settlers being given the scrip. Here is, what the scrip would have looked like. Basically a promissory note. Yes, you will get land, but none of them have been given the land. So feeling cheated, frustrated, most of the Métis moved west and north into what's now Saskatchewan. They worked as hunters, trappers, farmers. Buffalo began to disappear. Métis were facing starvation and poverty, and so they turned to other ways of living: ranching, farming, logging, small business.